ReZero, Volume 6, Chapter 4, Part 1. Won't let me say the words. Making creaking sounds, the land dragging continued moving forward. Subaru's mind was hazy, leaning deep into the driver's seat. He was the driver in name only. It was partly fatigue, partly the effects of his wounds, but it was chiefly the wearing down of his spirit. His broken bones and cut forehead had not healed. His dislocated left shoulder was crying out painfully. His broken teeth felt extremely unpleasant. His clothes, filthy from blood, mud, and urine, transferred the chill directly to his skin. Why had he survived? Protected by Rem, only to lose her. Abandoned by Otto, spurned even by the white whale that had spared his pathetic life. He blundered his way along the highway through the night mist, being free of it, and thus prolonging his life. Just where would this path leave him and the surviving land dragon? Once he arrived, would there be anything he could do? Desire to protect someone, to save someone. He trusted it with that feeling that had spurred him forward. Yet, having seen things he wished he hadn't, he knew he had simply been consoling himself with pretty words. He'd come to realize that he needed his own life above all else. He was a lump of flesh wrapped in self-pity. When they'd left Rem to face the white whale, and Subaru had ordered Otto to turn around, maybe he'd only pretended his heart was broken by Otto's rebuttal, but it was actually relieved deep down. If it was an opponent, even someone like a sword saint could not defeat, going back meant only a dog's death. Rem wouldn't want that. So he told himself he didn't need to go back. He didn't need to die. As a matter of fact, Subaru had gone back to save Rem. He even begged the white whale, the reported target of his hatred, for his own life. He shouted, "I don't want to die!" as he fled in a daze, peeing on himself all the while. At the time, Rem's safety, or lack thereof, never entered the back of his mind even once. Rem had done a pretty stupid thing, throwing her life away for a man like him. But the stupidest thing, there was no Rem anymore. Otto was gone, as were all other traveling merchants. Subaru was alone, save for the land dragon silently continuing to advance along the well-maintained highway in search of human civilization. It didn't matter where. Subaru just wanted it to bring him somewhere. Subaru grew apathetic, releasing his hand from the reins as he collapsed into the driver's seat. As he rolled onto his side, you could see the crucifixes still jabbed into the hard-to-see nook. It was evidence that Otto had been attacked by witch cult adherents apparently encountered after slipping past the mist. All that time, Subaru had been wondering if the witch cult would appear before him as well. Would he meet the same fate as Otto? Would his meaningless life be cut down as well? If it came to that, would he be spared once more, even if he was face to face with Petal Geese? Petal Geese. Haltingly naming the object of his hatred, Subaru knew just how hollow his own heart was. Even when voicing the name of the madman who'd brutally murdered Rem, mocked Subaru, and was the root of all evils. Subaru's heart didn't feel a twinge, even though only a few hours prior, Subaru's anger toward him was the only thing keeping him going. What the hell's wrong with me? The dragon carriage's wheels creaked. An extremely high-pitched sound clouded his eardrums. Almost in pain from the discordant sound, Subaru grimaced and sat up. A forest? The land dragon had stopped its walking some time before. When he observed his surroundings, the land dragon was clawing at the ground of a woodland road surrounded by trees. Apparently, the sun had risen some time ago, because white sun rays from above were baking Subaru's body. He had noticed that Subaru savored the heat on his skin, soaking it up like a wick when... "Ah, Subaru?" He was surprised to hear an innocent, pipish voice call him by name. A number of diminutive figures had climbed onto the stopped dragon carriage, peering down at Subaru as he sat on the driver's seat. They pointed at Subaru and began to laugh at the sorry state they'd found him in. "It really is Subaru!" "What's wrong, Subaru?" "Subaru, you're filthy!" "You stink, Subaru!" But these were not the laughs of ill-willed mockery, but rather warm chuckles reserved for those whom they bore deep affection. "You're..." He knew their faces. He'd seen them several times in the last few days. He'd seen them contort in pain and agony, never to smile again. These were the grinning faces of the children living in Arrowham village, on the outskirts of Roswell Manor. In a daze, Subaru lifted his head and saw that there, ahead on the woodland path, was the human civilization he'd sought. He finally arrived at the place he'd longed for, that he craved so much. Subaru had made it back before he'd surrendered completely to despair and lost everything. "Subaru? What's wrong? Ah, look out!" The children's voices rose. Subaru knew what they were trying to tell him. Regardless, his head had already grown heavy. He could no longer support his body. Something stretched taut, made a sound as it snapped. And once again, Subaru's mind fell toward a dark, quiet place, as if he were trying to shove all his troubles away. "Wait don't fall!" He fell. When Subaru opened his eyes, the first thing he saw was a familiar white ceiling. The plain room, adorned only by a crystal lamp, was something of a rarity among the dazzlingly ornamented rooms of the mansion. When he was here, he could feel at ease as the rank commoner he was, and so he had taken a liking to it, selecting it as his own room. Under his head was one of the pillows so eternally soft that he could never get used to them. The fact that the sheets had been meticulously pulled up to his shoulders made it clear that someone had tucked him in as he slept on the bed. It was Subaru's nature to become alert as soon as he opened his eyes, no matter what the situation. He looked around the room, seeing for himself that it was indeed where he always woke up. Ah! It was a girl sitting near the side of the bed, her eyes quietly lowered upon a book. She wore a customized, very exposing maid outfit, with black as its chief color. She had a white flower hair ornament and a lovely face. The sharpness of her stiff, beautiful features displayed her inner refinement. The instant Subaru realized she was there, practically leaped up into sitting position, taking her hand into his, for she realized he was awake. Her face registered surprise. "Do not touch me so casually, Barasu." As her cold, blunt words, the tone of her voice, and the feeling of his hand being shaken off shattered his illusion. That instant, he realized that the girl before his eyes had pink hair. His reunion with someone precious whom he had lost was nothing but an illusion. This was the older twin sister of the girl he longed for, 2 peas in a pod, differing only in hair color. "I can understand you are happy at seeing me after several days, but to leap at me by instinct is less like a man and more like a male. It is indecent." Ram glared reproachfully at Subaru, shifting her chair away as if to distance herself from the bed. The frigidity of her gaze and voice drilled into him that this was not her look-alike younger sister. "Yeah, that's right. I don't have any right to do that anymore." Ram suspiciously lifted an eyebrow. Subaru clawed at his head, bit his lip, and hunched forward. From Ram's point of view, he'd done nothing but greet his awakening with a suitably sharp tongue. The The usual Subaru would make some sort of frivolous comeback. He was falling silent with a grave expression. I really would rather you did not make me do something so atypical, but... As Ram spoke, he drew near to Subaru, gently patted his head with her palm. Soft movement of her fingertips had a quiet, gentle rhythm that unsettled Subaru. Your face says you are thinking something rude, Barasu. You did not expect kindness from me? No, I didn't. I thought you were the type to kick me when I'm down. I imagine there are few maids who have as much generosity and kindness as I. I'm too crafty to torment you in your current state, Barasu. I'll save the kicking for another time and place. Correction. You really are the woman I thought you were. Ram declared that she'd redouble her antics next time, but Subaru did not sense any less affection from her fingertips. Even if her speech was blunter and her personality was completely different, she really was Rem's sister. His chest grew tight with this knowledge that they really did think the same way. He bore the inescapable pain of what he had to tell her. Ah! He sank into thought. Subaru felt her fingers fall away, causing him to blurt out a sound of regret. He rushed a hand to his mouth, but Ram broke into a smile even faster as she shot him a teasing look. You wanted more? I don't need it. I'm not some little kid. Old words, but you look ready to bawl like a child. You're stubborn as a little brat. Ram slumped as Subaru gave her a sulking sidelong glance. Her condescension was fully intact as she said, Now then, Barasu. Ram returned the chair in front of Subaru, sitting directly opposite him and staring at him. I must ask you what you have to say. Yes, she said, before launching into the topic at hand. You were in an awful state, Barasu. You appeared at the village with an unfamiliar dragon carriage, filthy and half dead. At first, when people from the village called for me to come over, I thought it must be some kind of joke. In a businesslike tone, Ram recounted how she'd carried Subaru back to the mansion while he was unconscious. Dislocated shoulder, cut forehead. I'd connected the broken bones, but your wounds will open if you force yourself. I disposed of your filthy blood and mud-covered clothes. I shall refrain from telling Lady Amelia that you relieved yourself in them. Yeah, that's a big help. Subaru's mute reaction made Ram lower her shoulders with chagrin apparent to her face. To Ram, that last part was just a tiny bit of humor. It would have been a big problem for Subaru otherwise. And the person who healed my wounds was Lady Amelia. Just like that, Ram said what Subaru had feared. When Subaru hung his head at the reply, Ram put her hands on her hips and hummed through her nose. It could not be helped. I asked Lady Beatrice first, but she refused. And given how fickle she can be, I fully expected that she might decline. Did Lady Amelia say anything about me? I shall tell you nothing of it. That is something you should ask her yourself. Ram replied icily to Subaru's meek question while patting his formerly dislocated shoulder. I have not heard what occurred between you and Lady Amelia in the royal capital. I am not interested. From your reaction just now, it would seem that you did nothing good regardless. That's pretty harsh. I think it's a fair statement, is it not? More accurately, you are afraid that I will address the main topic of concern, and that you wish to clumsily put it off as long as possible by talking about something else. Unable to even manage a proper groan, Subaru understood what Ram really wanted to hear. After all, the individual who should have returned by Subaru's side was absent. Naturally, he needed to tell her about that first. He wondered if it was Ram's kindness or strictness that made her broach the conversation, and Subaru had said nothing of himself. It was probably both. He couldn't allow her benevolence to spoil him forever. Rem is dead. The instant the words were on his lips, Subaru felt something inside him gently come loose. The instant he made the confession, the weighty mass in the innermost depths of his chest broke apart and sank into his stomach, demanding acknowledgement from him. A hot sensation he felt through his forehead told him exactly what that mass was. I've lost Ram. A flood of tears poured out of him. He realized it. Only then did he realize Subaru had let Rem die over and over. Including the previous mansion loop, this made the 4th time Subaru had let her die, 4 times Subaru had felt her passing. Finally, it sank in that he had let Rem die 4 times over. And yet, that was the first time Subaru had shed tears over her death, for her sake. Not out of self-pity, not out of guilt, but purely for Rem's own sake. I couldn't do anything. On the highway, the mist, a white whale showed up. Then, so I could get away, Rem. But I was left behind in the mist. And then, finally... He couldn't put into words what he wanted to say in proper sentences. With periodic sobs, his account jumped from idea to idea, failing to arrange topics in an orderly manner. Unable to keep his excuses at bay, Subaru grew afraid, feeling that he had somehow sullied Rem's final moments. He acknowledged his crime, and accepted his punishment, one befitting an unsightly man such as him. That was why he had to explain everything as clearly as possible. Who is Ram? Huh? He didn't understand what was being said to him. Unable to grasp the meaning of Ram's question, Subaru made incoherent sounds in response. Who is Ram? What did that even mean? But seeing Subaru lost in doubt, Ram cocked her head and opened her mouth once more. Barasu, who is Ram? Her eyebrow hadn't even twitched at the mention of her twin sister's name. Now she was asking who she was. What do you mean? Who? Don't say stupid things like that. It's the name of your little sister, isn't it? Rem, right? R-E-M. Rem. This isn't the time for my little sister? Rem put a finger to her lips, closing her eyes as she seemed to sink into serious thought. Subaru had seen the gesture before, but in its present state, it was extremely difficult to endure. He felt the urge to yell, "What the hell are you doing?" and punt Ram all the way into the mist at that very moment. My little sister Ram. Ah. You remember now? I cannot remember what never was. I have no little sister. I have always been an only child. Subaru's face went very pale as Ram's plain statement defied every expectation. That's crazy. What are you saying? I do not have a little sister. Don't mess with me. If Rem didn't exist, what happened during the mess of the demon beast in the forest? You, Rem, and I went there and... Truly, what is wrong with you, Barasu? I loathe to admit it, but half the credit for exterminating the Uragaram pack is yours. The remaining half goes to my own efforts and Roswell's power. There's no place to slip in some long-lost sister named Rem. Even when hearing Subaru's protests, Ram obstinately refused to acknowledge her little sister's existence. Inside of Ram, things that had most certainly happened had been overwritten with false memories. He didn't know what it meant. He didn't know why she was answering him in that manner. This ain't funny. Not even a nightmare would have a script this bad. As always, I'm quite serious. It's you who's dreaming, Barasu. Dreaming? Dreaming? You're saying I'm dreaming? Stop messing with me! With Ram completely at sea, Subaru pushed aside the sheets and got out of bed. His endurance hadn't returned. His lower body wobbled as he walked out, driven by fierce emotions. Barasu, you should not be up here. Shut up! Be quiet and come look! Ram extended a hand towards his tottering body, but Subaru rushed it aside angrily. Subaru had been sleeping in his bedroom on the second floor of the mansion's east wing. Ram's room was on the third floor, so he walked to the stairs leading up in search of some trace of her. Your endurance has not returned. If you continue to force yourself and collapse, it will only cause me trouble. Ram followed behind him, speaking to him, but Subaru, his shoulders shaking in anger, had no intention of listening. Taking more time than usual to climb up the stairs, Subaru headed straight down the third floor corridor of the mansion before stopping in front of a room, Ram's room. Once Ram saw it, surely her ridiculous notions would shatter into dust. Subaru grasped the doorknob to the room and marched in. He didn't hesitate. If he did, Subaru's timid heart would let him make more excuses. He had no time to be worried or conflicted. The room he stepped into was plain, but decorated in a reserved, feminine fashion. No way. There was nothing. The space he just entered had a made bed and a little table, no different than any other of the empty rooms. Rooms had been simple, but this was different, completely devoid of personality. The little feminine touches and decorations had certainly been in hers. This can't be Looking around the room, Subaru couldn't believe it and rushed out into the hallway. Ignoring Ram's gaze as she stood beside the door, Subaru counted the rooms from the stairs to this one. He'd made no mistake. There was no way he could have. He could find the place with his eyes closed. Then why? Could it be Beatrice? Maybe she shuffled the spaces around on me like that first time. Barasu. That's right. That has to be it. Why that little? Playing her games to make fun of me. Barasu, stop it. Seeing Subaru grow hysterically desperate, Ram quietly dropped all hint of affection. Shocked, Subaru looked at Ram. She gazed back at him, the almost unthinkable, plaintive look in her eyes expressing just how much she was concerned for his well-being. But it was wrong. That wasn't what Subaru was looking for. Ram, this is her. There's never been such a person at this mansion. Ram shook her head, her eyes clouding as she said, as to slap him to his senses. I do not have a little sister. And so she finally destroyed his doubts.